Hey, Diane.
Hey, I see you made you.
I did, thanks to you girls.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Right.
Okay, we're just gonna wait for everyone else. Can Scarborough hear me?
Hi.
Hello.
That was, I hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna just wait for a few more people, and we'll start at 5:30.
Hi there. I'm actually the program assistant here at the Scarborough Adult Learning Center, and our student's not here quite yet.
Okay.
Actually, we were having some technical difficulties last week, so I switched her room. So I put signage up, but I'm going to go out in the hall and make sure she finds her way here. Okay?
The teacher's not here yet. She's off, but when she gets back, we'll let her know.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Oh, hello there. I guess we're good to go.
All right, the teacher still hasn't come back yet, but.
Okay, great. So good. I think it's 2 ways working. So I think maybe this one is good. I feel like we tried this room before too, but I think it's good. All right, excellent. Yeah, move things around as you like. Yeah.
All right, ladies, so how was your week?
Good.
Pretty good?
Yes.
Excellent. Can you hear me okay? And can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Excellent.
you.
All right. So I think I'm missing one person. Okay, so we have Liz, we have Ange, we have Diane, we have Jackie.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so last week we covered the active listening. We had that from an assignment from the week before. We did chapters 11 and 12, which was patient reception and office environment. And for this week, you were to read 13 and 14. Now, not everyone had their study guide. And those of you who do have your study guide, you were going to at least do the chapters that we had for last week, and then start working on the other chapters as you were able to. Some people did email me for the answers, so when you are ready for, the answers to the different chapters, just send me an email to ask me for the chapters that you're looking for. So, Ange, did you get your study guide in the mail?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. How about you, Jackie?
I did. Yes, ma'am.
All right, great. So this week, let's go ahead and get started right in the textbook on page 214, chapter 13. And we are on week 6, chapter 13 and 14. All right, so if you would you read the scenario for me, Jackie, please?
Yes, ma'am. Brandon Tips was a medical assistant who works with his father, Dr. Rick Tips. Brandon has considered continuing his education to become a doctor, but he's not sure whether he would like to be a medical doctor, an anesthetic physician, or a chiropractor. He decided to spend his summer off from college working in his father's family practice so that he could get a closer look at the inner workings of a physician's office. Brandon has assisted with many procedures in the clinic, including the administrative skills required at the front desk. The staff has been impressed with Brandon's ability to do any task, no matter how small, as if it were the most important task in the office. He continually moves from employee to employee to ask what he can do to help. When the administrative medical assistant working in the front desk, Darla Grover, was injured in a car accident and had to be out of work for a while. Brandon stepped right in to do her job and quickly learned her duties. His help enabled the office to continue to run smoothly, even when one employee absent for several weeks. Brandon has an excellent command of the English language and types about 60 words per minute. Because he is organized and efficient, he can handle the enormous amount of incoming and outgoing mail with very little assistance from the office manager. He is also able to answer phones and schedule appointments. He speaks clearly, is an expert in customer service. Many of Dr. Tip's patients have known Brandon since he was a small child, and they enjoy seeing him helping his father in his father's office. The patients and the staff alike will certainly miss him once he returns to college.
Okay, so basically, what is that saying about him, Liz?
It's saying that he's a hard worker and he's someone who's willing to learn and he has initiative.
Yes. And really, when you're in an office, in that type of a setting, you want to be able to learn every position, as we've talked about before. And being able to write well helps. I'll be honest with you and tell you all that writing is not my strong suit. I know what I want to say, but it doesn't always come out in my writing the way I would like it to. So I actually have friends who help me in that area, and I know that I'm never going to send anything out without the doctor's permission, or someone else taking a look at it before I send it out. So even if that's not your strong suit, you can also take classes, if you want to learn to write well or better. So let's go ahead and start with page 215. And chapter 13 is all about written communication and mail processing. So what's the importance of written communications? Ange, can you tell me?
Importance of, maybe they require thought, preparation, skill, and positive attitude.
Right. And you want to make sure that you're what?
Make sure that communication that are courteous to the reader, correct and content.
Yep, be courteous, concise, correct.
Concise, without being curt, yeah.
Yes. All right. And how does this reflect on the physician, Diane?
You gotta take your mute off, Diane.
Never going to remember to do that. If it's a well-written letter, then it reflects good on the physician. It makes him look well too.
Right. Um, so we want to try and do our best. And again, if you're not sure, and just go to the doctor and say, like, look, this is what I put together. Would you mind just taking a look at it, see if this is, something that how you want me to handle this? And most often, physicians will do that because you are representing their office. So definitely you want to make sure that you're handling things in a professional manner that reflect well on you and the doctor. All right. Writing skills and composing tips. Over on page 216. If you see over there on 216, there's a table of frequently misspelled or misused English words. So with writing skills and composing tips, what do they tell you? What are some of the things you would suggest? Liz?
You want to make sure you carefully reread your work, no matter what it is. You want to make sure it's organized well and like certain bits of information that go together are together and not all scattered around the page.
Correct. Be concise and clear. Make sure you draft a reply, proofread it, rewrite it for clarity. And we want to use what parts of speech, Jackie?
For the parts of speech, you want to make sure that you have like nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, injections, propositions.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And what types of sentences would be used? What do you think, Ange? What types of sentences would we be using?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What types of sentences?
Types of
Over on page
sentences.
218.
Declarative, interrogatory, imperative, and exclamatory.
Yep. You must have a function going on there tonight at school.
I really can't hear you clearly. Sorry.
I said you must have a function going on at school. I can hear music.
No, there's no music here.
Okay.
It's very peaceful.
Okay. Well, I hear some background noise. Okay.
It's not me. I don't have nobody.
Okay. Sentence structure. Sentence structure. There's three basic patterns. We have a predicate, an object, and a complement. So with the sentence structure, the subject is usually going to be the noun. The predicate is a part of the sentence that contains the verb telling us about what the subject is doing or experiencing. Some personal tools that we should use when we're writing on page 218. We should be using an up-to-date standard dictionary, a medical dictionary, a composition handbook, the English language reference manual, and a thesaurus. What are some of the other supplies or tools that we could be using, Liz?
For like a equipment, there's computers, copiers, scanners, and printers, and then there's the stationery supplies.
Yep. Okay, so critical thinking application 13-2 on page 219. Brandon realizes that his father's office does not have a method of logging letters sent by certified mail. This forces the receptionist to dig through a patient's file to determine whether certified mail was actually sent and the notice of delivery received. How can this issue be resolved? What do you think, Diane?
I think they could make a folder just specifically for those.
And how would you keep track of them?
Good question.
You could create a log,
A log, yeah.
a disclosure log. Okay. What do we use a copier for, Jackie?
To print or to copy anything that you want to keep. If you want to write on something, you make a copy, you make the changes on the copy or whatever you want to do, so it leaves the original to be in the same condition as it was when it was sent.
Okay. What would we use a scanner for, Liz?
To get documents, a printed out document onto a computer, you scan it in.
And why would we need to do that? Do you think? What do you think?
If there was a form that a patient had signed and you needed the proof of the signature in the computer.
Right. Right. All right, stationery. Who can tell me a little bit about stationery?
It comes in different sizes. It comes in standard or legal. It has different thicknesses for the quality of the paper.
Different weight.
Yep. And you don't see it so much today as you have in the past years, but sometimes they'll have a really nice heavyweight watermark stationery that they print things on. They don't do that so much nowadays. Why would we use a continuation page, Jackie?
It depends on what they're having. Like they might be talking about continuing pages would be used to continue on their thought, or maybe they use the front page and they want to close it, so they'll have a couple of sentences on the second page and then they'll put the closing. So it depends on why they're doing it for a second page.
Right. Okay. What types of envelopes are there, Liz?
There are window envelopes, then there's the number 10 and the number 6 3/4.
Which one is the one used the most?
Number 10.
Yeah. That fits most everything that people want to be using. All right. What are some of the letter styles? Ange, can you give me one of the letter styles?
The black letter style.
And what is that? Can you explain to me what a block letter style is?
All lines start flush with the left margin. This style is considered the most efficient, but less attractive on the page.
Exactly. Yep. What is the modified block letter style, Jackie?
It's a complementary. It has a complementary closing and it has a type signature, and that all begins at the center of the page.
And what is the modified block letter style with the indented paragraphs, Diane?
The modified block style, letter style with indented paragraphs is identical to the block style, except that the first line of each paragraph is indented 5 spaces.
Yeah. And the simplified letter style, Liz?
All lines begin on the left margin, and the salutation is replaced with an all capital subject line on the third line below the inside address.
Yes. This is actually something that's on the exam. Just to let you know that. Okay, types of punctuation for letter styles. Over on page 220. We use normal punctuation in the body of the business letter. Your standard punctuation is usually a colon placed after the salutation. And then you have a comma placed after the complimentary closing. There's open punctuation, meaning no punctuation is used at the end of a line outside the body of the letter. Spacing and margins. How would we use spacing and margins on a letter, Jackie?
It would depend on what you're doing for the type of, like modified block. The first page is usually censored in the first page, and it usually has no heading to it, no letterhead or whatever to the type of to the page.
Right. And where would we place the date, Diane?
In the middle.
Okay. It's actually going to be on the third line below the letter, or line 13 of no letterhead. And you can place it in the far right or over to the far left, depending on the margins that you're using. A 1-inch margin is minimum at the bottom of the page. Usually most standard letterhead margins are usually 1 inch to 1.5 inches on each side. You carry over a minimum of 2 lines of body of letter onto a continuation page. So let's move on to 222. Let's talk about the parts of the letter. What is the heading, Liz? What is the heading?
It includes the letterhead and the date line. And it's usually centered at the top of the page.
Right. And what is an opening, Ange?
Consists of the inside address, the salutation, and the attention line, if one is used.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. How about the body of the letter, Jackie?
It includes the subject line and whatever the person is writing about, what they want to talk about, or whatever the subject is about.
Okay. And the closing, Diane?
The closing includes the complimentary closing, the type signature, the reference initials, and any special notations.
And what do we consider a postscript, Liz?
It's often used to emphasize an idea or statement. It's just something that's after the body and the closing on some letters.
And you see it as a PS, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jackie, on continuation pages, what do we want to make sure we have on those continuation pages?
You want to have the name, the page, and the date.
And when we sign the letter, how do we want to sign the letter? Ange?
Letters dealing with medical advice to patients letters to officers or committees of the medical society. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
And the referral and consultation reports to colleagues, medical reports to insurance companies, and personal letters. Yeah.
Yep. Very good. So the critical thinking application on page 223. One of the employees has brought an urgent letter to Brandon that Brandon's father neglected to sign before leaving the office for the day. The letter is to another physician reporting his findings on a referral patient. The employee asked Brandon to sign the letter. What should he do? And what are some ways to resolve this situation if the letter must leave in the mail today? How do you think you would handle that, Liz?
I don't think he should sign it because if it's a letter to another physician, that's something that the physician would usually sign. So, I mean, if it's really important that it leaves today, maybe he could try to contact his father or talk to the office manager and see what she thinks should be done.
Yes. How do you think you would handle that, Ange?
I think I'm gonna talk to if I were Brandon, I'm gonna talk to his father, and yeah, let him know that he should sign something, the letter, the urgent letter.
Okay, so
I think
nope, that's fine. One of the ways that I would handle that is if I was able to call the doctor's office that referred the patient and just leave them a message that we were not able to get that in the mail this afternoon, but we will get it in tomorrow's mail first thing. That way I don't have to bother the physician. I'm letting the other office know that we have taken care of it and it will be there. Okay? All right, let's talk about telephone messages. How do we want to handle telephone messages, Liz?
You want to make sure that when you record it or when you put it down, that you're getting all the information correct and that you get all the information that's required so that somebody can respond to it properly.
Very good. And so when we do that, we want to make sure that we're getting all the information we need. Who called, when they called, what's their best phone number to reach them, what's the reason for the call, what's the action that needs to be taken, date and time, and the initials of the person who took the call. Email. When an email relates to patients, what should we do with that? Jackie?
You should you should get the message saved, and you should also print a copy of it and put it in the patient's chart, so they'll have anytime you touch the chart or have anything to do with the patient, you're supposed to put something in the chart that you've touched the patient's chart for some reason. So make a copy of it and put it in the chart.
Okay. And you should also have an email policy in your office that explains how you handle emails. What about text messages? How would you handle text messages, Diane?
Well, actually, text messages, isn't that personal? I mean, why would somebody be texting the medical office?
That's right. But sadly, there are offices that the doctors give their cell phone number and they get text messages.
Yeah, but don't they have their phone?
Yes. Yes. Fax messages. How do you handle fax messages? And over on page 224.
Before sending the before sending the documents, you have to call first to make it sure that somebody's receiving the documents like that. And you have to record also or ask the person who received the documents like that.
Yes, yes. You want to make a call to confirm that they received the documents.
Yeah.
All right, memorandums. Liz, how do you handle memorandums?
Um, if they're sent out to all the members, the employees of the office, sometimes they require employees to initial them and send them back so that they know they've been seen. And if it's regarding office policy, it should be filed with the office policy manual.
Yes. Diane, can you just mute your mic, your speaker?
Yeah.
Thank you. Much better, thank you. All right, editing. When we're editing, all documents should be proofread and it should be reviewed for accuracy and spelling. Most of the proofreader's marks are useful to revise documents quickly. So they give you an example on page 226 of proofreader marks. You don't really see those a lot today, but they are still used. You want to develop a portfolio of sample letters for common situations that arise. So, excuse me, in the office setting, I usually on my computer have templates of the different letters so that I can just plug in the name, address, and date on those letters and just print them off. I might change them just a little bit for the situation, but normally I have templates already set up. Mailing policies and services. So what you want to do with mail, when you're opening the mail on page 226, when you open the mail, you want to sort it. And you always want to date stamp it as of when it was received. And if you don't have a date stamp, handwrite it. You always want to know when you receive stuff in the mail. And you also always want to go through the mail with the provider at first to find out what are you able to open and what you aren't. And if you are unsure about what to open, do not open it. Just leave it and give it to the physician and just ask. I wasn't sure about opening this. When mail comes in, you probably have a lot of magazines. Those usually can be handled directly. You don't have to put those through to the physician. When you address an envelope, how should you address an envelope? What do you think, Jackie? According to the U.S. Postal Service optical reader guidelines, how should you address an envelope on page 228? They actually give you an example on page 229. Oh, Jackie, Did we lose you? Basically, when we address an envelope for the OCR to read it, if you look on page 229, it indicates the spacing that they want for you to be able to put the address in the blocked area, as you can see there, and the return address should be in a certain location, and so on. So when we have incoming mail, we're going to have general correspondence, payments for services, bills for office purchases, claim forms, laboratory reports, hospital reports, medical society journals, and stuff like that. Okay, so you just want to look at the mail, what comes in, and kind of make piles. So here's my bill pile, here are my magazine pile, here's my remits, okay? So you just kind of sort it as it comes in. And I usually do it during a downtime, not during patient time. So when I know that we have a break coming up or a slow time in the schedule, I will usually do it just before lunch or right before I come back from lunch. I will open the mail and kind of sit there and sort it out and date stamp it and put it in their respective piles. So just like we talked about early on in the class, anything and everything you do in your class, in your office, you want to do a how-to procedure, a standard operating procedure manual, an SOP. Okay? So establish a procedure right up front, write it out, and take care of it. You can even put your initials. When you have a lot of people in the office, if more than one person happen to pick up the mail, it should be good for someone to initial it so we know who picked up the mail that day. But normally only one person picks it up. When you respond to mail, when you're responding to mail, again, draft up your responses. If there's a letter of referral, that should be answered after the patient has been seen by the physician so that the physician can give a report. If the appointment is a long way off, use a courteous note saying that a detailed report will follow with as a good idea, and make sure you use thank you cards to the physicians who referred the patients, or even thank you cards to other people. Payment receipts. Your payment receipts arrive on a daily basis as well. So they should all be recorded immediately as soon as you get them. If they request a separate receipt to be mailed after you post a payment, then do so. Now they say here that receipts may be placed in the patient's chart and given out at a future visit. Yes, you can do that. But I do not put anything insurance related in the patient's medical record. I keep that completely separate. I do not keep it in the patient chart. Insurance information and drug samples. When we have insurance information, we've talked about in this class about doing insurance verifications. What does an insurance verification give us for information, Liz?
It gives us the information of what the insurance company is and what part of their cost that they're covering?
Correct. So we would make sure that the back office biller person would have that information. When we get drug samples and literature, the physician usually wants to save that stuff. Do not toss drugs in the trash. There is a way to take care of that stuff. Vacation mail on page 228. How do you handle vacation mail? Jackie?
Depends on if the doctor's just going away, you can still open the mail like you usually do and hold the personal stuff, depending on how important in that it is. If the whole building is going away, then you need to call the postal service and let them know that the office is closing down and to hold the mail, and then somebody will pick it up once they come back.
Okay. That's good. Outgoing mail, you want to stay on top of that too. If you're telling someone that it was put in the mail today, you really want to make sure it gets put in that mail on that day. Number 10 envelopes are probably the ones most used. The delivery address, we talked about how that gets set up on the envelope. Abbreviations are acceptable as long as they are obtained from the post office. Are there certain regulations for addressing envelopes? What do you think, Liz?
Yeah, there are. There's the ways that the postal service wants it so that it can be fastest for them to sort it and get it to the proper place that it needs to go.
Yes. Okay. Return addresses. Why should we have return addresses, Jackie?
In case that the bill doesn't get to the address, they have the address to be able to return it to the person that sent it. Might be a check, and it's at least going to be able to be returned back to you.
Yes. What about notations? When we're doing notations on the envelope, they should be typed and underlined on line 9 or the third line below the return address, whichever turns out being lower. You always want to align the return address on the left edge of the envelope, and any other notations that are directed to the post office should be typed in capital letters on the upper right side of the envelope, usually immediately below the stamp. Speed up mailing process. How can we speed up the mailing process? What do you think, Ange?
Where is it? To be faster than I think, yeah, we need to, we need to, the express mail, because it's gonna be, I think that's the fastest thing. I mean, I don't know.
Well, some of the things that can speed up mail is to definitely have a meter in the office that meters the mail already, so that you don't have to be putting stamps on the mail. You can also use envelopes that are pre-gummed, so all you have to do is moisten the flaps and use it on the envelope, and then turn the flaps down so they seal. Then you can also use the envelopes where you pull the sticky part off and fold it over. So just little things like that to help you with your mailing process makes a big difference. What are some basic delivery address guidelines? They talk about using capital letters, no punctuation, no punctuation. If you put them through your printer, at least a 10-point type, 1 space between the city and the state, usually 2 spaces between the state and the zip code. If you want to use simple type fonts, always use a left justified format. Use blank ink on white or light paper, no reverse type. Always put an attention line on the top. If it's a suite or apartment number that cannot fit on the same line as your delivery address, put it on a line above the delivery address. Words such as east and west are called directionals, and they are important, so make sure you put those on there. And use free zip code lookup or zip +4 for the correct postal zip codes. We all know that your first class mail weighs usually 1 ounce or less, and the address is parallel to the shortest side. Fancy fonts do not read well on mail processing equipment, so it's important to not use that type of stuff. And there are some types of paper that interfere with the machines that read addresses. When we're pre-sorting, what is pre-sorting, Jackie?
That means you're getting it ready to mail. So you put all your letters together, make sure that everything's there, the addresses, it's all sealed up. You, depending, some they do it in bulk. You can put a elastic band around it and have it all ready. So when you're ready to go to the mail, you just put it in the mailbox.
Okay. When you're using correct postage, how do you determine that?
For me again, depends on the weight of the envelope that you're using. If it's a regular envelope, most of the time it's regular standard. If you're using the manila, it might be a different price depending on what you're putting on there. And if you have one of them machines, it tells you what the price is going to be because it can see it or weigh it or whatever.
Yep, having a postage meter definitely would help. So on page 231, the critical thinking application. Brandon knows the mail processing would go much faster if the office invested in a postage meter. The office manager states that she has mentioned this to Brandon's father several times, but he did not purchase a meter. How might Brandon approach his father about this issue? What do you think, Liz?
I think that before he goes to him, he could do the research and find out the long-term benefits of having one, or see how much the immediate cost of it is, but what it would save in the long run, or how much faster it would make the business run, and then go to him with that information ready so that he can back up his.
Absolutely. Go do him first. I mean, do the work first and then bring him the figures. Over on page 231 on the right-hand column, it talks about the different classifications of mail. So it tells you domestic versus U.S. and international. Express mail. Express mail is usually, it's available 7 days a week, and it usually can get there within a few days, if not overnight. Your first class mail usually takes about 2 to 3 days. Priority mail, same thing, 2 to 3 days. Standard mail is usually your advertising and your promotional and your directory stuff. Your media mail is used for books, film, manuscripts, printed music, that type of stuff. Your business, nonprofit, and insured mail over on page 232. You just want to consider the benefits of using business mail to acquire new customers. Is it beneficial to send out postcards, mass letters, newsletters, that type of stuff? Registered mail. What is registered mail, Liz?
It's mail of any class that has a high value that you can protect by registering it.
Okay. And postal money orders and special delivery. What is that, Jackie?
Postal money orders are like a check. The money's already in there, so you don't have to wait for it to be cashed. They have the money out front, and a lot of companies prefer that because they know that the money's there and don't have to wait for it.
So on page 233, special handling. What would be special handling, Diane?
Third and fourth class mail sent by special handling receives the fastest service and ground transportation practical. But same as the first class mail.
Very good. What is certified mail, Ange?
Any piece of mail without any value or which postage is paid at the first class rate will be accepted as certified mail.
Yes.
It's often used to aid debt collection.
Yes. Whoa. What is certificate of mailing, Liz?
If the sender needs proof of mailing but isn't necessarily concerned to get proof that the person received it, they just need proof that they sent it out.
Right. Private delivery services, Jackie, what are those?
That would be like United Parcel Service, Airborne, Express, DHL, anything, couriers, messengers, anything other than the post office.
Yes. All right, forwarding and obtaining addresses. If a piece of mail is marked forwarding service requested, the post office usually will forward it to the new mail address if it is sent within a 12-month time frame. And if the mailer wants to know an addressee's new address, the service can be obtained by the post office by placing the words address correction. Recalling mail on the bottom of page 233. Diane, what is recalling mail?
If a letter has been dropped in the mailbox by mistake, you can ask them, you can go to the post office and see if you can get that letter back.
Yes.
Well, you need to write a letter.
Right. Yep. And what is returned mail? Liz?
Returned mail is if it cannot, if they can't get it to the person who it was supposed to be sent to, they're going to send it back to you if you gave them a return address, and you have to put new postage on it before you can try to send it out again.
Right. All right, tracing lost mail. Usually tracing lost mail is where a receipt is issued by the post office. That receipt should be retained until the receipt of the item has been acknowledged. Tracing a lost letter or package requires you to fill out a special form, and you usually get that from the post office. What is mail merge, Jackie?
It's a way for you to create a group of documents that's unique for whatever you want to write, whatever type of letter you want to write.
Yes, and you use Microsoft Word, and you merge it with a set of letters, emails, and faxes, or labels and envelopes, and it saves you a whole bunch of time. So every document that is sent from a medical office should obviously project a professional image. You want to use neat handwriting, and all of your office staff must be able to read items that were written years ago. In your office, you'll see that brochures are often used and printed material to educate patients. It's critical that we look at the materials as professionals and reflect on, is this the type of image that we want to project about the physician and about the facility? If the item is written in-house, make sure that it is proofread many times. You want to keep copies of all communications leaving the office that relate to patient care. And if any information is handwritten, it must be completely legible to the patient. Do we have any questions regarding written communications, ladies?
No.
Okay, so part of your assignment for homework, because you all have your study guides, so you're all going to do 13 and 14 in your study guides, but also I want you to type me a letter. And you are going to use one of the letter styles, and it has to be at least a couple paragraphs. And I want you to let me see. I try to pick something different every session, so give me a second. Okay, 2 small paragraphs, simply telling me a little bit about yourself and why you think I should.
Sorry, why?
Why you think I should hire you as a CMA. And it might be 2 big paragraphs, but that's okay. I want a letter. And you can choose one of the styles in the chapter. And then you're going to email it to me.
When is the deadline?
What?
Is there a deadline?
By next week. By next week. By next class. Actually, next week is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that when you asked if we had any questions about anything.
So, next week we don't have class.
Yay. No.
Shoot, she says.
Just kidding. So we're gonna send it to you, the letter, before Wednesday next week?
No, you can send it to me before Wednesday, December 3rd.
December 3rd.
So you actually have 2 weeks. Okay?
Yeah.
Pull out your study guide and I'll tell you what I want you to do in your study guide. Or you can just write down the page numbers. Page 91. Page 92. Page 93. And then page 94 up to part 3. that's all for chapter 13 in the study guide. So let's go ahead and move on to the paper medical record in the textbook. Page 237, chapter 14. And this one actually is a short chapter. The next few are short chapters. The paper medical record, the scenario to open us up. Liz, will you read that?
Yep. Susan Beasler has just begun her career in the medical assisting profession. She is attending medical assisting school in the morning and works part-time for a family practitioner in the afternoons as a clerical record assistant. Susan is eager to learn about medicine and looks forward to taking on more responsibility at the office. The practice is growing swiftly and recently added a new physician, Dr. Alex Thomas. Dr. Thomas has enjoyed working with Susan and feels that her energy will be just what his patients need. He has taken a professional interest in Susan and often lets her assist him with patients when her other duties allow. Susan knows that although she is a beginner at the office, she will gain trust from her supervisors and patients as long as she projects a teachable attitude. The office has not yet converted to an electronic record system, so Susan uses the information she learned in school about paper medical records. She cheerfully performs filing and even does some transcription for Dr. Thomas. The other staff members are pleased with her willingness to perform the most mundane tasks. Susan enjoys sharing her experiences with her classmates. She is the only one currently working in the medical field, and the other students ask her a lot of questions about the real world of medicine. She is very careful not to breach patient confidentiality. She discusses situations only in general, never mentioning any patients' names. Susan feels a great sense of pride that she is already a member of the healthcare team and able to contribute to the lives of her patients.
Okay. Turn the page to 238. Underneath your vocabulary, what is alphanumeric, Ange?
Alphanumeric, relating to systems made up of combinations of letters and numbers.
Okay. What is a direct filing system, Jackie?
A filing system with which materials can be located without consulting an intermediate source of reference.
And what is an indirect filing system, Diane?
A filing system in which an intermediary source of reference, e.g., a card file, must be consulted to locate the specific file.
Okay. And how about power of attorney, Liz?
A legal instrument authorizing a person to act as the attorney or agent of the grantor.
Okay. And provisional diagnosis, Ange?
Temporary diagnosis made before all test results have been received.
Okay. And subjective information, Liz?
Information gained by questioning the patient or taking it from a form.
And what is vested, Jackie?
Granted or endowed with a particular authority, right, or property to have a special interest in.
Very good. Okay. So, the importance of medical records. This helps the physician provide the best possible care to the patient. So it's important for continuity of care with other healthcare professionals. It offers legal protection to those who provide care to the patient. It provides statistical information that is helpful to researchers. and it's vital for financial reimbursement. So what do you think would happen if we didn't have a medical record, Jackie?
You wouldn't know what kind of treatments that you had, what the symptoms were, what kind of blood test you had, any type of test that you had. And if you did go to court for a lawsuit, you had nothing to use because you didn't have the file, any type of file.
So you'd have no backup, nothing to determine if what you said you did, what actually happened. You wouldn't have any way to go after the patient for reimbursement if the insurance didn't cover, so on and so on and so on, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the ownership of the medical record over on the page top 239, who owns the medical record? Diane?
The physician owns the medical record. The patient has the right to see his medical information.
Right. Exactly right. And the patient has the right to demand confidentiality. So if we turn the page to 240, talk about the critical thinking application 14-1. On Susan's third day at work, a man comes into the office and demands to see his mother's medical chart. Susan pulls the chart and sees an entry stating that the mother does not want the son to have any information about her. What should Susan do in this situation? And are there any viable reasons the son should have access to his mother's medical information? What do you think, Liz?
I think that she should calmly explain to the son that that information is confidential and that she can't give it out. And and I don't really think that there's any viable reason he should have it. I mean, it's her information. The only circumstance would be maybe if he had power of attorney or something, but if there's a note in her medical record, I'm assuming he doesn't, so she can't give it out.
Okay, exactly. With today's HIPAA laws, it does not matter that I am a wife, a mother, a daughter. None of that matters. Just because I am those things and I call for information, there has to be a written release for those people in the offices to talk to me. So if I call my primary care physician knowing full well that my husband and I see the same doctor, he cannot tell me anything about my husband's care unless my husband has signed something saying he can talk to me. I cannot call to have information about my mother from her primary care physician unless she has signed something that says I can call and talk to her doctor. My children, they're of age, they're over 18. If they want me to talk to the doctor on their behalf, they have to sign something that says I can call and talk about. They can even restrict what it is I talk about. They can say she can only call and talk about this particular situation, or she can only call and talk about the financial part, or whatever. So be very, very careful. You're not even supposed to confirm that a patient is there if a family member calls on the phone and says, can I please talk to my mother? Or I know my mother's there for an appointment. You're not even supposed to confirm that. So be very careful. So with the types of records, we have paper and electronic. Paper nowadays is very inefficient because there's a possibility of misfiled information. Now don't get me wrong, there's still possibility of misfiling stuff electronically too. With paper, there's no easy access to the data, and information is actually very difficult to share. Your electronic records now are more efficient. What is a source-oriented record? Ange, can you tell me what is a source oriented record?
That is, observations and data are cataloged according to their source: physician, laboratory, radiology department, nurse, technician, with no recording of a logical relationship among them.
Yes, very good. Okay, what is a problem-oriented medical record? Liz?
That is, it has 4 parts. It's divided into 4 bases. It has the database, the problem list, the treatment plan, and the progress notes.
Yes. Now let's talk about SOAP notes. SOAP notes. Just the way it sounds. S-O-A and P. S is the subjective impression. O is the objective clinical evidence. A is the assessment or the diagnosis. And P is for the plans for further studies, treatment, or management. You can also use what is considered the Cheddar method over on page 242. Spelt just the way it sounds, cheddar, like cheddar cheese. The C is for chief complaint. The H is history. E is exam. D, details of the problem and complaints. The second D, drugs and dosages. A, assessment, and R, return visit information if applicable. The contents of the complete case history is the most important part in the physician's practice. It contains the subjective and objective information. In the subjective information, you will see the personal demographics, their personal and health history, their medical history, their family history, social history, and their chief complaint. So over on page 242, Critical Thinking Application 14-4, while taking a patient's medical history, Susan asks about his social history. She asks whether he drinks alcohol, and a patient immediately becomes defensive and accuses Susan of getting too personal about his affairs. How do you think Susan can explain her reasons for asking these questions? Diane?
That she can tell him that whatever he tells her, has to keep it confidential. She will not share that with anyone, and that he can be sure of that.
Right, and it also has to do with following policies and procedures that have been set forth. That's usually the best thing to do, is to say, well, it's our policy and procedure to get the best reimbursement for your care in this office is to be able to note these things to the insurance if they have requests for your records. All right, some of the objective information over on page 243. You'll find physical exam findings, lab and radiology. You will also see the diagnosis, the treatment prescribed and any progress notes, the patient consent form that's required for surgery or other treatment, and the condition at the time of termination of treatment. Your role as the medical assistant can be to obtain the history. You're also responsible for the privacy and confidentiality. So you would ask the patient to complete the questionnaire. If it is paper, it may be mailed ahead of time or completed in the office. And if it's electronic, you may even email it to the patient. So over on page 244 and 245, you'll see a couple examples of forms. You have seen forms in your own practitioner's office. They have something similar. When you're making additions to the patient's record, Your laboratory reports usually are on different colored paper, which are used for reporting different procedures. You can place small lab slips on 8.5 by 11 colored paper and punch it, hole punch it and put it in the chart. Your radiology reports and your progress notes, everything would go chronologically, the newest on top. Over on page 246, when you're making corrections and alterations to the medical records, you want to correct any handwritten entry, and to do so, you want to draw a line through it. Draw a line through the error, insert the correct information above or immediately after it in a spot where it can be read clearly. If it's indicated by the policy and procedure manual, you can write correction or CORR in the margin, and then the person who is making that correction should write his or her initials or sign below the correction and the date. You would do the very same thing in an EHR program as well. You want to try and do it as in the moment. If you find it, you can pretty much just take it out right then and there in the moment and put the correct information in. But if you put the information in and come back and found that it was an error, you would have to line out what was there, make the correction, and then initial and date it. And most of your EHR programs today have time and date stamps. To keep records current, over on page 248. To keep the records current, you're responsible for methodically keeping the record current. So after the patient, check each history. Give the physician any abnormal reports. Adhere to any written policies that you have in place. Your records should never leave the office and should not be left out in view at night. And you want to make sure that any dictated notes get transcribed. How would you handle regular transfer of files, Jackie?
You always want to make sure that it's for the specific like items that you want. You always want to make sure that they're copies, and you always want to make sure that there's authorization to be able to transfer it to doctor or to wherever.
Right. Right. And you're going to have active files, inactive files, and closed files, so make sure that you establish a system to regularly transfer files from active to inactive, or even destruction. When you're purging, make sure that you process the moving of the file from active to inactive. How about retention and destruction? Tell me about retention, and how long should we keep some of the records?
I think 10 years.
7 to 10 years. Yep.
Yeah. And if it's minor and reaches the age of majority plus 3 years.
So usually, if you start seeing someone as a child, you keep their records until they turn 21,
Okay.
or until the age they would have turned 21. If someone has deceased, it's usually a couple years afterwards. If it's a workers' comp or a PI case, you usually have to keep it until the case has been resolved and completely taken care of. You can also contact the patient before the destruction and be sure to preserve confidentiality. You can also contact these destruction companies that come in and just shred things on site and ask them about retention. The protection of records. Tell me about protection of records, Diane.
Do not release original case histories to anyone outside the healthcare facility. Instead, prepare a summary or a photocopy of materials needed for reference and retain the original in the physician's office.
Yes. And you only want to fax required pages and use an out folder for those rare occurrences when records are temporarily out of the office. You're not going to see that very often nowadays because so much has gone towards electronic that a lot of the paper charts really are still just sitting there on the shelf now. They're not even touched. Some long-term storage options, you might use microfilm. For electronic storage, make sure you back up regularly, and transfer of paper records onto optical discs. What I've done in the past with the transitions that I have just helped with is we will scan into the patient electronic health record anything from the past year, and then we keep the patient paper chart just filed away. So you can do it that way. I don't see if you really need to scan in the whole patient paper chart. Over on page 252, they talk about a power of attorney. This is where some attorneys may present a legal document to have a power of attorney signed. It authorizes them to see the records. So when you're releasing records, make sure the patient signs the release. The patient requests for information should be made in writing. There are HIPAA compliant forms for release of records. And special considerations regarding release of minor records should be taken into account. You see on page 252, figure 14-10 is a revocation of release of medical records. Basically, that says you no longer authorize the release. Dictation and transcription. Transcription can be done from handwritten notes, such as shorthand, or machine dictation. System access is usually accessed by the telephone, and then voice recognition software can also be used. So the provider would dictate the notes. It would get uploaded to an FTP file or still put on a little cassette disc and mail to the transcriptionist, or the transcriptionist could access that FTP file and just do the transcription. Filing equipment. We have drawer files, shelf files, rotary circular, lateral files, compactable files, automated files, card files, and special items. You usually see the drawer files and the shelf files a lot in particular practices. You might see the circular or rotary files in the big X-ray areas so that they don't have to move so many cabinets. They might slide back and forth or side to side. Filing supplies, over on page 254, you might have divider guides, out guides, file folders, and labels. An out guide, actually, you would put it in place of a folder if you took it out, and on that you would indicate the date and where it is. Some filing procedures over on 255. Liz, tell me what conditioning is, please.
That is when you take all the pins and paper clips off of the papers and then you staple related papers together and attach anything that's smaller than the regular page size to a regular sheet.
Yes. And what is releasing, Ange? How about Jackie?
That is just making a mark to know that it's ready to file, a check mark, your initials, just something to let them know that it's ready to get filed.
Okay, Jackie, sorry, Diane, how about indexing and coding? Okay. Well, indexing means deciding where to file the letter or paper, and coding means placing some indication of this decision on the paper. Sorting is arranging the papers in filing sequence. Sort the papers before going to the file cabinet or shelf. Storing and filing would be what, Liz?
When you put the actual papers or folders in where they belong, you always want to place items face up, top edge to the left, with the most recent date at the front of the folder.
Yes. And how about locating misplaced files, Diane?
Unless files are promptly replaced after use, they may become lost. Papers may be misfiled, requiring a thorough search to find them, which wastes valuable time. You can check the folders in front, the folders behind it, underneath the folders, between the folders, in the folders of patients with similar names, and in the sorter.
Okay, very good. Indexing rules. Indexing rules are pretty well standardized and based on current business practices. There's actually an Association of Records Manager and Administration that takes an active part in updating these rules. So when you're indexing, how do you start, Jackie?
Looking at the ones that they had, I like the alphabet one because it helps you out. And I like the colored one myself. If I were going to do that, I'd do the alphabet and the colors because you can notice something is out of color.
Right. And that's mostly what you see in patient paper charts is that they will use colored numbers, and then they will do a smaller label with the last name and then the first name and the middle initial. Your initials will always precede a name beginning with the same letter. There are hyphenated elements, but those are usually considered one unit. An apostrophe is disregarded in filing, and when you have indistinguishable foreign names, be very careful how you write those. Make sure you're writing them correctly. And prefixes are considered part of a name. If you have any abbreviated parts, those are indexed as written. Mac and Mick are filed in their regular place in the alphabet. The name of a married woman is indexed by her legal name. Your titles may be used as the last filing unit if needed, and degrees used only to distinguish from an identical name. As you can see right there, Theodore Wilson, PhD, Theodore Wilson, Sr., Theodore Wilson, Jr., Theodore Wilson, MD. And if you look below that, it shows you how those would be filed in order. Articles would be disregarded in indexing. Filing methods, the alphabetic filing is simply the most common one used. You then have direct filing system. The direct filing system requires only a file cabinet or shelf, folders, or divider guides. There are some drawbacks to it. What do you think some of the drawbacks?
Can you hold for a second? Yeah, I'm good. Oh, good. All right. Thank you so much. That's good.
We got you back, Ann.
Sorry.
That's okay. It happened.
Thank you.
So what are some of the drawbacks, Liz?
Um, the correct spelling of the names must be known, and as the number of files increases, more space is needed for each section of the alphabet. Um, and as the files expand, it takes more time.
Right, so some of the drawbacks of alphabetic filing on page 257, we might have inconsistency in the spelling, the correct spelling might not be used, shifting of folders, file increase, more space needed. With numeric filing, you will see the indirect filing system. Numeric filing also combines color and shelf filing, which usually every large clinic or hospital uses. With your indirect filing system, this requires use of your alpha cross-reference. The advantage is that it allows unlimited expansion, provides additional confidentiality, and saves time in retrieving and filing. There are several types that exist, and you might need to have more training, and when you do that, fewer errors will occur. Let's turn the page to 259. As you can see, figure 14-13 shows you the color coding of patient charts. This easily helps you to find a misplaced file. What is subject filing, Ange?
Subject filing can be either alphabetic or alphanumeric, and is used for general correspondence.
Yes. And what about color coding, Jackie?
That's looked for filing and for finding files, that's easier, and for finding misfiling folders, because it can be, and it's kept to a minimum because you can see the colors.
Yes. And alphabetic color coding, Diane?
Files can be color coded in several ways. One alphabet system uses 5 different colored folders with each color representing a segment of the alphabet.
Okay.
The second letter.
Very good. How about numeric color coding, Liz?
That is when numbers 0 through 9 are all assigned a different color.
Yep. And in a terminal digit filing system, the colors for the last 2 numbers are usually affixed to the tab. Some other color coding applications, you might use color where there's small tabs that can identify certain types of insured patients and other specific numbers. So we're talking about just a little dot that we put on the chart in addition to the colored numbers and their labels, so that we can tell, you know, maybe red is for Anthem and green is for Aetna. We know by pulling that chart, that's the type of insurance they have. Your organization of files. Disorganized files can cause problems. It makes it very difficult. So you should have a system in place for how you put the things in the files. You have health-related correspondence, you have general correspondence, you then have practice management files, which are your active accounts and your paid accounts, over on page 260. Then you have miscellaneous, tickler or follow-up files, which are usually chronological, and then transitory or temporary file. So what would we consider health-related correspondence, Jackie?
That is pertaining to the actual records that's filed with the history, case history. It could be like a subject file, like radiology. It could be labs, anything that has to do with that certain type of file.
And what about general correspondence, Ange?
Correspondence, nature pertaining to the operation of the office is part of the business side of the practice. Usually, a special drawer or shelf is set aside for general correspondence. Is indexed according to subject matter or the names of the correspondents.
Okay. Practice management files, what would we do with those, Liz? What are they?
They are in facilities that still use a manual system. It's a card or vertical tray file, and the accounts are arranged alphabetically by name. And it's divided into active accounts and paid accounts.
Yep. Okay. So miscellaneous files. Miscellaneous files, they do not warrant an individual folder, but they are placed in a miscellaneous folder. This means that all papers relating to one subject or with one correspondent are kept together in chronological order with the most recent on top, and then filed alphabetically with other miscellaneous material. Well, first of all, I don't like the word miscellaneous because it obviously pertains to something. It's not miscellaneous. So I would put the subject of the content. So put the subject of the content instead of putting miscellaneous file. Your tickler or follow-up files, these would be chronological arrangement. And we have spoken about those before, where you either have one of those accordion folders that have the alphabet or the days of the month. Or you take a file folder and you have hanging folders in a drawer and you just mark those, 1 to 31 for each day of the month. And then when you work on something, you usually put it in, 7 days or 15 days or 30 days to follow up on that particular item. Okay. Transitory or temporary file, what would that be, Liz?
It's any paper that doesn't need to be kept. Like, it can be for a patient who is not local to that area, like if they're traveling and they stop at a doctor's office. It's paper that isn't going to have a big file, doesn't need to be kept as long. It can be shredded after the state statute of limitations.
Right. And that's the other thing, when you're shredding or purging documents, make sure you know what your state guidelines or federal guidelines are. And I believe in this book it does give you a listing of those and what they are. So there have been a lot of advances in medical records that occur rapidly. So you want to be on top of what's going on with medical records. Be willing to learn anything and everything. Adapt to the changes and keep a positive attitude. So think about everything you do in the office in your assistant role is a tool, okay? So you need to learn how to use the phone. You need to learn how to use the computer. You need to learn how to learn the software so that you can best utilize it and be efficient at utilizing it. Just like driving a car, you had to learn the ins and outs of the vehicle and how it worked. Just like your phone or your computer, you had to learn the different things to make it work efficiently. So the same thing with your job. You have the resources and the tools available to you. It's up to you to be willing to learn to become efficient in your job. Okay? So you can't use the excuse, well, I wasn't trained. No one showed me. Sit there, and when you have some time, play with it. Okay? Liz, remind me again, what do you do for work?
I work at Dunkin' Donuts.
So what did you do before that?
I worked in a nursing home in the dietary department.
Okay, so you have some computer experience, right?
Yep.
Okay, do you feel pretty comfortable around a computer?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm definitely competent with all of the using the programs and stuff. I would like to be a little faster at typing though.
Okay. And how about you? Do you feel pretty comfortable with a computer?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Do you have a laptop or a computer at home?
Yes, yes, I do. I have a laptop.
Okay. How about you, Jackie?
I have two laptops and I have the computer at work that I use every day for inventory.
Okay. And Diane, what do you have?
I have a laptop at home, but I used a computer every day at work when I was working.
Okay. So do you all have Microsoft Office?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So part of your assignment for chapter 14 this week is to find one thing within Microsoft Office that you didn't know before.
Can you say it, please?
Yes.
Can you say it again?
You're going to look in Microsoft Office. So your Microsoft Office suite has either Outlook, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel. What else is there? Okay. You can even just do something in Word, but I want you to find one thing that you don't know in your Microsoft Office and do it. And come back to class and tell us what it is you learned to do. It doesn't have to be huge, just something small. Something you've always wondered how to do. Because this is what I tell my staff when I'm training them. Okay, you don't know how to do something on the computer, guess what? I want you to go learn how to do it, and you're going to teach the rest of us how to do it. Okay, that's how I train. Because yes, I have to sit here and I have to learn all these programs just so I can train all this staff. But I don't know everything. So if they come to me with a question and I don't know the answer, I task them with finding that answer and then coming back and training all of us. So that is your task over the next 2 weeks, is to go into Office, whatever program you want to choose, and find something that you've always wanted to know and figure out how to do it. Because there's tutorials on YouTube, there's tutorials on Microsoft site, and I think if you go into your help, they tell you, Microsoft Office help about Office. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Any questions on the paper medical record? Okay. Let's pull your study guide. In your study guide, I would like you to do page 99. Page 100. Page 101. Page 102. All right, that will be it for that. Let's go ahead and do in class right now. Let's talk about page 103. All right, on page 103, let's start at the top. What we're doing with page 103 is we're correcting the medical record entries that we see as it would be done on a medical chart. And then we're rewriting the entry correctly on the line that they provide for us. So for number 3, they're saying that the correct date for the last refill was 3/20 of 2014, let's say. Chart the correction and then follow up on the actions. So on 4/22/2014, the patient requested that a prescription for Vicodin be refilled. The last refill was 4/20 of 2014. Dr. Lawton refused the refill and requested patient schedule follow-up appointment. S. Ragland, RMA. Okay? So what is the mistake there?
The date.
Yes. Which one?
The last refill date.
What should it be?
3/20/2014.
Right. So the correction would be date of last refill was written incorrectly in the above entry. The actual date of the last refill was 3/20/2014. Submitted to Dr. Lawton to reconsider refill of medication. S. Ragland, RMA. So on number 4, what additional follow-up information might be needed in this situation? What do you think, Liz?
To tell the physician so that they know that it wasn't actually a prescription being asked to refill 2 days afterwards. It was a month later, so that they can get back to the patient and maybe refill the prescription for them.
Right. Go to the physician, tell them what happened, find out if they want to refill the prescription, and advise the patient. Okay? All right, number 5. Mr. Eric Robertson canceled his surgical follow-up appointment today for the 3rd time. How would you chart this information? How do you think, Diane?
Like you would put it in his chart as Mr. Robertson canceled his follow-up appointment today for the 3rd time, and date it, sign it, initial it.
Right. Don't forget to refer it to the doctor. The doctor is going to need to know the patient canceled for 3 times. All right, number 6. Angela Adams called to report that she was not feeling any better since her office visit on Monday. She wants the doctor to call in a refill for her antibiotics. The chart says that she was to return to the clinic on Thursday if she was not feeling better. Today is Monday, and she says she cannot come to the clinic this week. The physician wants to see her before prescribing any other medication. How would you chart this information, Jackie?
Today's date, Mrs. Adams called to state she feels ill and requests that doctor refill her prescription. Physician advised Miss Adams to request to see her before she is able to refill the prescription. Asked to set up the appointment, and patient will call back to reschedule to be able to refill the prescription.
Okay, something like that. We can keep it shorter, and we can put the date, and we can say Miss Adams reports she's not better since her office visit on Monday. She requests a refill for antibiotics. She did not return to the clinic on Thursday as directed. She states that she cannot come to the clinic this week. Refer back to Dr. Hughes for follow-up, and then sign it. All right, next one. Mary Elizabeth Smith called the physician's office to report redness around an injection site. She was in the office 3 hours ago and received an injection of penicillin. She says she also is itching quite a bit around the site and is having trouble breathing. The doctor has left the office for the day. Office policy states that if the physician is out of the office and a patient presents or calls with an emergency, he or she is referred to the ER. Chart the action that the medical assistant should take. What do you think, Ange?
Put the put the time or
Yep, date and time.
date and time, and telling there that she was in the office 3 hours ago,
Yep,
and then received an injection of penicillin, and after that he is having trouble breathing, and she should contact the I don't know. I think she is to be referred to the emergency department,
yep,
and then put a sign on it.
yep. I would go a little bit more detail. I would indicate that she is experiencing redness around the injection site, that she's having difficulty breathing and itching. I would, like you said, indicate that she be referred to the emergency department for possible allergic reaction. And I would also add that I requested the patient to call the office tomorrow to schedule a follow-up appointment and then sign it. Okay?
Okay.
All right, Suzanne Melville. She presents to the office complaining of pain in her lower back, extending down her leg, both on the right side of her body. She states that she has a history of kidney stones, and this pain feels similar to the previous incidents. She requests pain medicine and asks if she should go to the hospital for an ultrasound. When the physician comes in to see Suzanne, she tells him that the pain is not similar to the previous pain that she had with kidney stones. The medical assistant misunderstood the patient regarding the pain, and the correct information needs to be charted. How would you do that, Diane?
Would you go? This is a question, really, but would you go in and cross that all out and redo it?
No. Nope.
So do you just go in and state that you misunderstood her?
Something like that. You would put the date, indicate that the patient is complaining of right lower back pain, which extends down her right leg. She does have, or the patient does have, a history of the kidney stones, but today's pain is different from the pain that she had at that time. And then the patient requests to have pain meds and a pulsable ultrasound, and then sign it. So some of this stuff doesn't have to be as wordy as we think it does. We can keep it very succinct, but still has a lot of information. All right, let's try on the next page, 104. Let's do the next one. Erica Dunlap. Erica Dunlap comes to the clinic as a new patient and brings copies of her medical records from her previous physician. She has a history of hypertension and migraine headaches and now complains of pelvic pain. She arrives for a pelvic exam and wants to discuss a hysterectomy with the doctor. The previous physician was listed in the medical record as Dr. George Smithy, but on a later appointment, Miss Dunlap mentions that the doctor's name is George Smythe, not Smithy. How would you take care of that, Liz?
You would put down a date and time when you got the information, and you would put down that she complains of pelvic pain and wants to discuss a hysterectomy, has a history of hypertension and migraine headaches, and then you would go back to where you put down George Smithy and then date it and correct it there.
Yes.
And put the actual.
Yes. Okay. Let's do the next one. Bob Fillmore calls to alert the office that he needs a refill of his thyroid medication, and he speaks to Susan, one of the medical assistants. He states that the medication is Armour Thyroid, 60 milligrams daily. When the authorization fax came in from the pharmacy, it indicated that Bob had been taking 120 milligrams, 2 of the 60 milligram tablets each day. Susan calls Bob and clarifies that he is taking the correct dosage, calls in the refill after the physician authorizes it, and then charts all information in Bob's medical record. What do you think, Jackie?
I would put patient requested refill for prescription. Notice the pharmaceutical authorization stated 120 milligrams. Called pharmacy to verify that it should be 60 milligrams, and advised the patient that to only take the 60 milligrams, not the 120 as requested, or notified on the bottle.
Yep, and then you want to indicate the doctor authorized the refill and the new directions, and then it was called into what pharmacy. Okay? All right, next one. Let's talk about Alicia bringing her son Colin to the clinic with a fever. Colin is a twin, and both twins' medical records are filed right next to each other. The medical assistant, Anne, pulls Colin's brother's record by mistake and uses it to chart all of the information regarding the office visit. When Alicia calls the next day to report that Colin is not better, Anne pulls Colin's file and realizes that she and the physician wrote in the wrong chart the day before. She pulls both charts to make the necessary corrections. So, what would be the first correction you would make, Diane?
The correct information in the right chart, and then you have to go in and date the other chart and state the error that was made and cross the information out.
Right. So, in the brother's chart, you would place one line through all of the incorrect information. and you would date it, and then you would document error correction. Please disregard all information charted in this medical record from 4/24 to 2014. Information was incorrectly charted in this record. Then in Colin's chart, you would date it, correction to this chart. Colin was seen in the office on 4/22 because of a fever. The wrong chart was used. The following is the correct charting for Colin's visit with the physician, and then you would insert the complete information from the wrong chart. Then you could indicate on 4/23 the mother called. Colin's not feeling better. Per Dr. X. Alicia will bring Colin into the office for a follow-up appointment. So you would present both charts to the physician and explain to the doctor what happened. The physician should then both review both charts in case of any allergies or complications with treatment, and just review the history.
Doreen, can I ask you a question on that one?
Sure.
Okay, earlier you had said that you're not supposed to put like two people's information together, like yours and your husband's. When you wrote in Collins, and I'm just thinking of something, when you wrote in Collins to say that it was written in his brother's, you shouldn't really do that because that's two different people. Should it just have stated that it was written in someone else's medical record? Not the brother's stating, well, it was in the brother's record or whatever the brother's name is. Can you just say it was written in another medical record by mistake?
It just said the wrong chart was used.
But I thought it was for the brother. It said that it's done for the brother.
Right, when we pull the brother's chart,
Correct?
we say, please disregard all information in this medical record.
For the brother.
We didn't indicate the brother. We just simply said that information was incorrectly charted in this record. We didn't indicate whose record.
Okay.
And then when we pulled Collins, we did the same thing. We just said the wrong chart was used. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, let's go on to the 5 filing procedures, the 5 basic filing procedures. Yeah, we just went over it in our textbook. We don't have to tell me what it is. Just tell me the name. So what is one filing procedure? One basic filing step. Liz.
Conditioning.
Yes. Next one, Ange.
Releasing?
Yes. Jackie.
Indexing and coding.
Yes. And then the last one would be sorting. All right. Let's talk about the case study on page 105. The Blackburn Clinic is considering the purchase of new filing equipment. They currently use an open shelf method with the patient's names in alphabetical order. They would like to change to an alphanumeric system. What must they consider before making this change? And how would the office implement this change so that it causes the least disruption to the patients and staff? Liz, what do you think?
I think that before making the change, they need to figure out how they would do the alphanumeric system, get everything ready that they need to change it over, and before they implement it, they should make sure all the employees are trained on how to use it and make a change in the office policy manual so that everyone knows.
Yeah. What do you think, Jackie?
I think I was just thinking the same thing, that they should let everybody know how it's used, and then maybe take like a day and have everybody take certain names and then just start going through the practice. So hopefully to make the process a lot easier by everybody getting involved and knowing how it's going to work.
Right. Right. Okay. And how about you, Diane? Anything different to add to that?
I don't think so.
Okay. How about you, Ange?
Yeah, I think they should consider the indexing rules.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, over the next 2 weeks, I would like you to finish up the assignments that we talked about tonight. This will allow you some time to catch up on any of the stuff that you have on Evolve that you haven't completed, like your exams. I do have some to reset for a few of you. I will do that tonight after we're done. Then I would like you to go back into the study guide, as I said last week, and just go in and do, the first couple of pages of every chapter. So your vocabulary reviews, any fill in the blanks, any true, false, any matching. I wouldn't worry about the case studies or the internet activities or the workplace applications. Essay questions, you really will be able to find the answers right out of the book. So again, just do your vocabulary reviews, your fill in the blanks, your short answers, your matchings, your true or false. Stay away from the case studies, the internet, and the workplace application. So that when we come back together on December 3rd, you should be able to have 1 through 14 completed. And then for December 3rd, I would like you to do the additional assignments that we talked about. So you're going to write me a letter and send it via email. And then, what was the second one I asked you for?
To find something in Microsoft Office.
Thank you. I have to write those 2 things down. Okay. So send me
Why should
a
I have?
letter via email and teach us one thing from Microsoft Office. So if you're really great in Excel and we don't know it, you can just teach us how to do a simple worksheet. Or if you are really great at, merging and mailing or word text or art, do that. Or if you've never used Outlook before and you want to know how to use Outlook, set up your email. Okay? So, any questions this far?
Can you just say real briefly again what you want the email to be about? I think I got it, but I just want to double check.
Tell me a little bit about you and why I can hire you as a CMA.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be great detail, just 2 short paragraphs, basically, that will tell me why I need to hire you.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so Jackie, what is your takeaway from tonight?
I learned a lot from the different filing options that they have. I learned a lot of what they want from the medical records and what's really expected as far as the different types of medical records, what they all entail. So it was pretty good. I learned everything every time. Actually, every time I read one of these chapters, I learn more stuff that I took for granted or I really didn't know. So it is a nice. They are very interesting.
Good. How about you, Liz? What's your takeaway?
Just how much writing and correct use of the English language pertains to the medical records and to the correspondence that you're going to have every day.
It's a lot. It really is a lot. How about you, Diane?
I didn't realize just how much they do besides just, bringing us to a room. It's a lot. I guess you appreciate them more than you don't realize how much they actually do besides just escorting you to the room.
Yes. There's all that behind the scenes work that you just said it. We take for granted.
Yeah.
We have no idea. And how about you, Ange?
I think for me, it's, the charting and changing and correcting medical records are kind of, it's not, I was not, it's really kind of difficult for me, but I think I think I'm gonna figure it out if I keep on practicing
Yes.
or do more studies like that.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I hope you all have a great week off. Have a little bit of fun. Don't work too hard. And I will see you all back here on December 3rd.
Doreen, can I ask you to check my tests? I haven't had my test for 5, 11, and 12 yet. Any, like the scores?
Okay. I'll do
You can
that
do that?
after done. Yep.
Thank
And
you.
I wanted to ask you if you still have my email on the chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9 on the corrections that I had sent you. Because you corrected chapter 11 for me, but
I just printed it off this morning. I have to read it again.
okay.
It was one of those where I started reading it and I had to print it off so I could read it again.
Okay. I just didn't know if you received it or forgot it or lost it or.
Nope.
Okay.
I didn't.
No problem.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Have a great night.
Thanks.
You too. Happy
Take care.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too, guys.
Bye.